Hey guys, I hope you're all doing really well. I thought I would just update you on my Goodreads reading challenge. So I set myself 15 books for the year. We've just finished June and I have read 5 books. So I'm a third of the way there, we're half of the way through the year. So I'm a little bit behind, but I tend to read more in winter anyway as it gets darker and colder. So I used to do a literary blog and it just helped me kind of process and understand what I was reading better. If I enjoyed it, why? If I didn't enjoy it, why? So I wonder whether that is something that you would be interested in seeing more of from me, and that's certainly something I would be keen to talk more about. So if this kind of video is something that would interest you, please keep watching and let me know in the comments. So the fact that I'm behind, so to speak, doesn't really stress me out. So I thought I would just share with you kind of the first 5 books I've read, my thoughts on them, the ratings that I've given them on Goodreads, and to kind of seek any recommendations from you. Obviously I've got 10 more books for the rest of the year. What should they be? So we'll just kick things off with the first book I read this year. And the first book that I read this year was Generation X by Douglas Coupland. This is a book I had tried to read when I was about 13 or 14. I really couldn't get into it. There was something about it that was just kind of a blocker for me. And then I started reading it again just before Christmas. Because I finished it in January, I'm counting it towards this year's challenge. I don't care what you say. I finished that this year, it counts. So I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Now that I am older, a little bit more cynical, I really enjoyed this. It really struck a chord with me. It's disenchanted without being unromantic. And I really enjoyed that about this book. If you are in your 20s currently, read this. This is a blanket recommendation. If you are in your 20s, read this. So the second book that I read was Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi, and I really didn't think I was going to enjoy this. I'd heard really good things about it and I really enjoy graphic novels in general, but life writing for me is something that I struggle with sometimes, unless there's something very unique about the way in which it's written. Even if the story of someone's life is very interesting, the writing or the storytelling has to be particularly interesting or unique for me to really engage, and it certainly was for this. So for those who don't know, it is a graphic novel. So this follows the author from her early years into her teens. There's a very kind of youthful, innocent ignorance at the beginning of the book, and you grow cynical with the narrator, the author. Funny in places, it's really sad in others. And I really recommend this as a graphic novel and as a piece of life writing. And I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. So the third book I read was A Total Cheat. It is another graphic novel and it is really small. And this is Fire by Bendis. So this is 90s Bendis. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. I didn't enjoy it as much as some of the other Icon Comics stuff from kind of a similar period. This tells the story of a guy who is drafted in to become a secret agent basically because he's a loner. It's a little bit more cliched than some of the other stuff from this era. If I had to recommend something instead, it would be Goldfish. Fire was good and I enjoyed it. It was quite an easy read. Goldfish was more exciting to me. I'm kind of a sucker for an anti-hero, so maybe that's why I preferred Goldfish. So the fourth book I read was Grey by E.L. James. So this is the first 50 Shades book as told by Christian. So those of you who don't know me personally won't know this, but I actually studied creative writing until master's level, so I have a real interest in storytelling and narrative, and when a book hits the bestseller list, it piques my interest, and obviously all 3 50 Shades books were at one point completely stacking out those bestseller lists on Amazon and Waterstones. So I've read all 3 of them, and now the 4th one. Whilst reading the original trilogy multiple times, I ended up throwing the books across the room. I was laughing out loud at how bad the writing was, in addition to the really damaging message that it actually portrays. I didn't know that this was coming out, and when I found out that it was being released, I legitimately thought that that would be quite interesting to see where James goes, especially with Christian as narrator. So we already know what's happening in the story, but how do things look from his side of the fence? And one of the things that really did annoy me about the first books was the narrator, Anna. So she's super annoying. I have to tell you that Christian is annoying in a different way, but he's definitely a more bearable narrator, I find, than Anna was. If this first book is anything to go by, Christian knows he's an asshole. So that I thought was quite an interesting choice by James, to have him acknowledge that These had been written in a vacuum, so if there had been no feedback whatsoever on the first set of books and then she'd written these, whether he would have romanticised himself a little bit more. I honestly don't know, and we'll never know, but I feel like there's kind of some backpedaling being done by James in this book. But the writing is still terrible, the relationship is still really unhealthy. You should totally check out the Film Theorists video on YouTube around how Gray exercises the same steps as cult leaders in terms of getting Anna on board with his program. Read it out of morbid curiosity. A 2-star book. The writing is still really bad. Narrator is slightly less annoying, but the narrator is more self-deprecating than I think he would have been had the feedback to the first books not been so strong. And my 5th book I actually don't have because I borrowed it from a friend and I've already given it back to her, but it was Barry's Peter Pan. And it was a good read. It didn't really captivate me. I gave it 3 stars, I think, from memory. And it was great to read this original version, having grown up with obviously the Disney movie and this idea of Peter Pan being very much a hero. The book gives a much more realistic portrayal of someone who is stuck as a child. So Peter is forgetful, he's selfish, he's cruel, he's petulant, very much a child. But obviously all the other children still see him as a hero. In the Disney movie you are supposed to see him as a hero and he is the hero of that movie. But in the book there's kind of a weird jarring effect as you read it. You know, especially as an adult, if I read it as a child maybe I would have seen him as a hero, but in this it's quite a strange effect that it creates. And so I enjoyed it, didn't fall head over heels in love with it, but definitely glad that I've read it, and as I say, that one is probably a 3-star for me. So that is my 6-month update on my 2015 reading challenge. If you're doing a reading challenge, how are you doing? Are you on target? Are you halfway through the year, or are you a little bit behind like me? If you have any recommendations for you know, the remaining 10 books of my year, I'm currently reading The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. I'm hoping to have that finished fairly soon. It's quite an easy read, but I am always open to suggestions on what you think that I might enjoy, so please leave me a comment down below. Thumbs up this video if you've enjoyed this update. If you would like to talk books a little bit more, I could do an update at 9 months or wait until the end of the year and let you know how I've got on. Just let me know. I hope you all have a really lovely day and I will talk to you soon. Bye.